working on the snow machine today. When I put it away last year, I had a shock absorber problem, and the bushings on the end of the shock, one in particular, was completely shot. So the metal bushing is just banging back and forth. There's no rubber plastic left in there. So you can't buy replacement bushings for this skidoo shock. And I replaced this shock about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's over $400 now. So I am not about to spend $400 on replacing a shock for the sake of rubber bushings that can't be obtained. So if you've never used 3M's window weld product, it's urethane rubber in a tube. That's what they put windshields in vehicles with. It is spectacular. I've used it for bushings in the past, a suspension bushing, rubber bushing. And so what I've just done is I've taken my die grinder and I've cleaned out inside the metal because I want it to bond good. So I've run through there and I've cleaned that out. Now I have to clean the bushings up, and then I'm going to set the shock up to be able to inject the rubber and hold the bushings in place. So I've cleaned up the inserts that go in here and used the die grinder as well, cleaned them up. But I also put a few dimples in there just to get a little extra rubber to prevent this from letting go or moving, hopefully. And we'll see how this goes. Not a lot of room between this and the space in there, so I'm probably going to soak the inside and the outside and kind of rotate to put them in place. So I've now placed the shock on some shims, so you can see the eyelet of each end of the shock is sitting flush on the board. It's suspended. So when I put the insert inside, it's flush and there's space all around it. So we're going to do the same with the other side just to check and everything's good in there. So I'm going to spray them with brake cleaner, make sure there's no oil or grease inside or on the bushing itself before I put the window weld in. So what I've done here now is I've taken Teflon plumber's tape and I've wrapped the end of the shock bolts that normally were holding the shock in place, and I put the plumbing tape on just to expand the bolt and make a snug fit so I can push the bolt in the bushing and it holds on, so I can actually rotate it when I'm putting it into place and get the window weld to spread around and make sure it's seated, centered, etc. So because it's a small space that I have to squeeze this into, I took just a utility syringe and I squeezed window weld into the syringe itself. So I'm going to see if I can insert it a little easier with this. Okay, so here we are. I'm finished, and I injected a good amount of window weld into the frame inside, and then I coated the inserts with the bolt stuck in. I pushed the insert down, rotating it to make sure it bonded well, pushed it out the back, leveled and squared everything off, and now I've got the shock sitting there. But quite important actually, I used a square to get approximately so that the bolt is sitting square in the hole, because the insert is loose in there, held only by the urethane rubber. So I want it to cure with the bolts and the inserts approximately square, or you may not be able to get the shock back in place. So that's all there is to it. Worked very well. I did use the syringe just to fill the top, but it wasn't necessary. Had some latex gloves to spread the stuff around, but it is what you have to do is you have to take that bolt and just move it and clear the urethane from the edges to make sure you have the insert centered in the ring. Then let it cure and we'll be good to go, and instead of spending $400 on another shock, which is actually still good. Very useful stuff, this window weld.